This is Ed. Back in June, Ed and his wife went on a hike near Balboa Park. They do that often. But this time, Ed noticed something different. He was exhausted and couldn't keep up. His wife started noticing something was off too.
She turns around and looks at me and goes, "You are yellow. You are all yellow. We are going to the emergency room right now." So we went to the emergency room and they immediately gave me a blood test and came back and said, "You got hepatitis."
Ed is one of the 481 San Diegans infected by hepatitis A. As of October, 17 people have died. The virus spreads when a person ingests trace amounts of fecal matter from a person who's infected with it. Most who've gotten this infection are homeless or drug users, but 125 San Diegans, including Ed, don't fit those categories. Health experts say the best way to stop the spread of hepatitis A is through vaccination and simple hygiene routines, like hand washing. But in San Diego, that's not the easiest thing to do, especially if you're homeless. Access to public restrooms is limited, so homeless people are often most vulnerable. City and county officials have started mobilizing to stop the spread. Many are wondering, though, how did a virus more common in underdeveloped countries end up booming in San Diego? How did we get here? To answer that, we have to go back to March of this year. That's when San Diego County health officials declared a hepatitis A outbreak. Even then, concerns about the virus remained mostly private. By mid-April, there were 42 cases and 2 people had died. At that point, some city officials started showing more interest. Emails show scattered discussions on the topic, mostly with a cordial tone. By early May, the situation worsened. 3 were dead, and there were 80 documented cases. During this time frame, officials began noticing that traditional vaccination offerings at clinics weren't doing the trick. The disease was affecting the homeless community. They needed a better approach, so county teams began offering vaccines at homeless camps. The county says they started talking more about sanitation improvements too. The epidemic continued to grow. At the end of May, there were more than 130 cases. In June, 160 were infected, and the death toll hit 4. Then weeks passed. It wasn't until July 13th that 2 hand-washing stations went up outside a quiet county health complex in Midway, miles from downtown streets considered ground zero of the outbreak. By late August, the death toll reached 15, and more than 330 people had contracted hepatitis A. That's when officials began to scramble. After Voice of San Diego and other media outlets spotlighted local governments lacking urgency in fighting the outbreak, city leaders rushed to tackle it. They deployed 40 hand-washing stations around the city. In early September, the county declared a state of emergency.
Chairwoman Jacob, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
The city started power washing streets. They've also held mass vaccination events. One official estimates the outbreak response now takes up 70% of Mayor Kevin Faulkner's schedule, and his activity on social media shows it's become priority number 1. But now that local officials have mobilized to control the epidemic, many San Diegans, like Ed, fear the public still isn't well informed.
What drove me crazy was that everything I did read kept saying homeless, homeless, homeless. And I'm sitting here going, I ain't homeless, and I got it. And then I start reading, well, 30% are not homeless. And I'm going, there's no publicity about this. I mean, it's all homeless, homeless, homeless. And it's bad, believe me, but there's another 30% here that are being affected by this.